Welcome back, everybody, for another State of Boston sports episode. This episode, we are talking state of the Red Sox. We got some still pretty good free agents out in the market right now that we might be looking at, trying to figure out who we're going to have playing in center field, and some sad news that we're going to get started with first. Tim Wakefield's widow, Stacy Wakefield, passed away yesterday. Unfortunately, so we just want to send our condolences to the Wakefield family. It's unfortunate news. It's sad, and we just want to send our condolences their way. All right, now let's talk free agents available on the market right now. Do we want to sign them? Who do we want if we sign them? What are our expectations for the free agent market still?
I would definitely say that Snell is my number one guy. I would say that Snell, out of any of the guys left, I would say that Snell, based on his age, his past performance, I would say Montgomery is a good starter. He's probably a 3 in a good rotation. Snell could probably be your 2, even a 1 if need be. I don't think he's a true ace. I think he's more of a 2 to another guy who's better than him. But I would say that the Red Sox are so desperate for pitching, I think they need to land him or Montgomery, but preferably him. I think a Matt Chapman doesn't really fit in as a guy there because they already have Devers and Casas, so he wouldn't really play. They already have DH covered as well, so I would say that Snell is my number one target.
Yeah, and I think with Belly off the board now, you already had a little bit of a logjam in the outfield. I think it's down to those two pitchers, really. Imanaga goes to the Cubs. We talked about Yamamoto. He goes to the Dodgers. The big pillars have fallen. Still waiting on Montgomery and Snell. With Montgomery, they're holding out for a big deal. They're trying to sell high on Montgomery. I understand why you'd be hesitant, but also, when are you going to get the pitching? Are you going to pay for Max Scherzer next year? Are you going to wait for Verlander to come off their deals? It's just going to get more expensive. And if you couldn't get it done with Yamamoto, your offer was like $300. He goes even north of that. I don't know when you're going to get the pitching. You're banking on Richard Fitz, I guess. Richard Fitz and Cooper Criswell to figure it out.
The big guy, I just think that they have nobody coming up. And they're not willing to deal any of these prospects. So I'm not really sure where, like you said, where this pitching's coming from. I don't know, because Mata's not ready, apparently.
Mata's done.
Yeah, Mata was their big guy. He's basically out of the picture, not in their future plans as of right now. They won't trade a Roman Anthony, a Marcelo Meyer, even a Kyle Teal to get a Corbin Burns. So I don't really see, unless you sign a big free agent, where you're getting the pitching from in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking to me that Snell and Montgomery are still on the market right now. But maybe teams just feel set with their pitching. I hope the Red Sox aren't waiting for Scherzer or Verlander. I mean, we saw what happened with the Mets. Last season they thought they had something with their rotation with DeGrom, Verlander, and Scherzer. I don't know if it's just that Scherzer and Verlander couldn't perform in the National League, or I know they had some injuries, so that could be part of it too. And maybe they're just, or like I said, maybe they're just built for the American League. But I really hope that the Sox aren't waiting on them. I mean, they're getting up there in age. They're kind of injury prone now. They're not in their prime anymore. But that is classic Boston sport tactic, is waiting on the guys to be at the ends of their careers to bring them into the team. But I think we don't have an ace anymore. We need an ace, and we're not going to get one now. So I don't know what they're thinking.
Look, I think you're trotting Giolito out there as your number one. That's where you're at right now. Giolito, banking on a bounce back to turn it around. You've signed him to a deal that incentivizes, if he plays well, he has an option to leave. Same thing with Justin Turner, although he wanted to stay because he loved it, but you forced him out. And then Bello's your number 2. You're banking on the upside with Bello. He made a lot of progress last year, but he fell off towards the end. He has an issue with pitching in the day. I don't know why. Let's figure that out this year. You have Crawford hoping to take steps forward for sure, but then you're starting to get to the nitty gritty down here. Pivetta looked pretty good last year. Can he keep it going? He might be your opening day guy. He might be the opening day guy, Nick Pivetta, who looked atrocious for the first quarter of the season, where you had to move him to the pen to humble him. Figures it out eventually. And then finally, it's Houck and Whitlock. Who's staying? Who's going to the pen? Who's joining? No longer Schreiber, but who's joining Martin and Jansen up there in the pen? That's what they have to figure out. It really is a train wreck of mediocrity in the pitching staff. So that's how I feel. It's a joke.
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do anymore with that pitching. They need to figure that stuff out. That's really their main concern right now, because when the bats were doing well, the pitching was just god awful. Like they probably could have made the playoffs if the pitching could have been figured out when the bats were doing well. They most likely would not have been sitting last in the AL East. And depending on, I don't really remember how the end of the season went because I was just done paying attention to them after like the All-Star break pretty much. But they probably would have been on the verge of a playoff spot if they could have figured out the pitching and when the bats are doing well, because the lineup was okay. But when some bats weren't hot, other bats were to pick them up, and it worked aside from the pitching. So I don't really think that's their main concern is the pitching. But moving on from that, because we're beating a dead horse with that topic, let's talk about who we think is going to end up being in center field, because there are a lot of options, and there's still some on the board that could be shipped out during the season, before the season. Who knows?
My least favorite thing about these MLB teams is they always try to save money. They try to save money. They try to save service time. Rafael, they're doing the same thing. If he doesn't get called up, I believe me and Brendan were talking about this. I think it's like June or late May or something like that. If he gets called up then, he keeps a year of service time. So you don't have to pay him another year. So the Cubs did the same thing with Chris Bryant. They kept him down in the minors for 12 games to save a year of service.
And now he's been in two other teams since.
It just really makes me mad when these teams who are multi-billionaires, these guys owning them, and they won't pay like another year of arbitration early because these guys, there's a way to get around their service time. So I think just because the way that the MLB's run and the way that John Henry's operated these last few years, I think that Rafael is going to come up in June, and I think that he's not going to be on the opening day roster, regardless of how he plays, regardless of how he looks in spring training, how ready he is. I think it's going to be a combination of Duran, O'Neill might play spot center field, and maybe even a little Rob Refsnyder. I don't see Rafaela making this team.
I think Abreu is going to play a lot. They love his bat. I think you're right about Rafaela. I think that's exactly what's happening. When it comes to Duran, this is why I understand why they would move him for the Lesko deal, because Roman Anthony is coming. Roman Anthony's coming, and he is the guy that they're selling you on. So it's a logjam, and we talked about this in the middle infield. It's a logjam of prospects. They have way too many fielding prospects, not enough pitching prospects. So Roman Anthony's coming, Duran's there, Rafael is there. You have to trade one of those guys. Abreu, one of those guys is going to have to get traded.
It's a good thought to build up the middle, but when you have too many guys and not anybody on that pitching mound,
this is what you get.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting start to the season, but hopefully they're able to figure it out. Expectations for the season right now? What are we thinking?
I would say as low as they've ever been. I'm going to be honest.
Can we win? Can we go 500?
I'd say
meaningful baseball in September.
yeah.
That's all
I would say the ultimate goal is to play meaningful baseball because I don't see them even contending for a wild card. Really, I see them maybe like making a small push for it at the end of the year. But other than that, I'm saying maybe 80, 81 wins.
So are we thinking dead last in the AL East or third or fourth?
I think the East upgraded. I think the East looks a lot better. You know, Burns is here now. Soto's here now. I think all I can ask for is we're trying to get the wild card, as opposed to last September where we just fell off a cliff. We were done. You know,
Just play meaningful baseball.